Rise of the European Emperor by Taishan Laonyo.
Chapter 561, Marin's Request and Suggestions. Before the autumn harvest was over, Marin received a secret letter from Edward submitted by the North Sea Chamber of Commerce in Dublin. Moreover, the representative of the North Sea Chamber of Commerce in Dublin also found out a very secret message. Edward seemed to have made this decision and wrote this secret letter after receiving a secret letter from his sister, Princess Margaret. What a smart woman, she can actually guess that it was me. Marin actually overestimated his own hiding means. His only flaw was that he used 10,000 English mercenaries in the war. And it happened that the intelligence personnel under Princess Margaret had learned that the Morgan Chamber of Commerce had recruited 10,000 soldiers in Newcastle. Therefore, this 10,000-man army was undoubtedly the group of people from the Morgan Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, the Morgan Chamber of Commerce's methods of doing things were also mysterious, very similar to the North Sea Chamber of Commerce, which aroused Princess Margaret's suspicion and speculation. Marin didn't know, and thought that Princess Margaret was very smart and saw his flaws from some clues. So, Marin didn't intend to hide it and decided to admit it. Of course, this matter couldn't be made public, but just told Edward quietly. Coincidentally, Marin couldn't make trouble in Germany for the time being, so it was just right to send troops to England. Moreover, it could make the German princes more at ease. I'm going overseas, you can rest assured. Of course, Marin was unambiguous about the requirements. According to the secret letter from the North Sea Chamber of Commerce, Edward seemed to suspect that he was very interested in minerals. So Marin simply expanded this point. So, in his reply to Edward, Marin emphasized that he wanted to monopolize the coal mines in the Newcastle area. Minerals in ancient Europe generally belonged to the royal family. In addition to Northumberland in the north, Marin also wanted the Isle of Wight in the English Channel as a fiefdom, and allowed it to station a fleet to protect its shipping interests. In addition, since the other party suspected that he was interested in mineral resources, Marin simply proposed that he wanted the priority purchase right of tin ingots produced by the tin mines on the Cornwall Peninsula. It was impossible to want the right to operate the tin mines on the Cornwall Peninsula, because that was the reserved interest of the English royal family. Moreover, Cornwall could not be sealed away. Because the Duke of Cornwall was the title of the Crown Prince of England, and the Cornwall tin mine was also an important interest of the royal family. Therefore, Marin only asked for the priority purchase right, not the right to operate the tin mines. Before obtaining the tin mines in the east, the tin mines in Cornwall, England, were obviously an important source of tin metal in Europe. Therefore, it is also very good to obtain the priority purchase right of the Cornwall tin mines. You know, the role of tin metal is very large. First of all, bronze requires tin. In the future, Marin will keep bronze cannons, mainly Napoleon cannons, and will also make tinplate, which naturally requires a lot of tin metal. In addition, tin sulfide is also a golden dye, and gold paint is generally impersonated with tin sulfide. If the color is adjusted to be darker, it can be impersonated as copper. Before, Marin had people paint copper on the outside of his cast iron cannon, which was actually tin sulfide. The purpose was to make people misunderstand that copper was used to cast cannons, and deliberately mislead others. The price of copper is so expensive now. If others are really stupid enough to use copper to cast heavy cannons, the cost will be completely unbearable for ordinary princes. Therefore, before getting cheaper tin on the Datong Eastern route, it is also a good choice to contract the export of tin metal from the Cornwall Peninsula in the UK. Of course, these are secondary. The most important thing is that Marin asked Edward if the French royal family failed to give birth to a prince within 10 years, please marry Princess Margaret to Little Caesar. Marin remembered that Louis XII seemed to have died 10 years later. It seems that His Majesty the King, in order to have a son, has been doing that for many years, and as a result, he died on the belly of his new wife, Princess Mary Tudor of England. At that time, Louis XII was only 52 years old, and he had not yet reached the retirement age of 60. In fact, Marin felt that in this life, Louis XII might not live to 1515. Because, the truffles that the fat brother has been providing to the king and queen for a long time contain aphrodisiac ingredients. As a result, His Majesty the King and the Queen are very interested in doing that thing now, and they often do it. However, there is no land that can be plowed badly in this world, only cows that are tired to death. Although Queen Anne is not in good health, But if she is not pregnant, she is only 28 years old, at the peak of her youth, and she is not afraid of being plowed. Louis XII, on the other hand, is not strong to begin with, and he is already 43 years old. At this age, in ancient Europe, he may die at any time. If he is still so hard-working, he is estimated to not live to 1515 in the original history. But no matter how Louis XII plows, there will be no results on Queen Anne. Because Queen Anne takes contraceptives all day long. Although Louis XII may get results by plowing other women. But, it's useless. Anne of Brittany is the queen, and children not born by the queen are all illegitimate children and have no inheritance rights. Moreover, Louis XII did not dare to divorce Queen Anne. Because Queen Anne has the title of Duchess of Brittany. If the French crown prince is not born to Queen Anne, then with the marriage of Princess Claude, born to Queen Anne, and the succession of the crown prince, France may lose the Duchy of Brittany again. Therefore, Louis XII now has no choice but to work hard on Queen Anne every day to give birth to a crown prince who can inherit both France and the Duchy of Brittany. As long as the crown prince is born, according to the Salic succession law of continental Europe, the Kingdom of France and the Duchy of Brittany will both be male crown princes, and Princess Claude cannot snatch them. Marin also knew that Louis XII and Edward had a private agreement. If Louis XII and his wife gave birth to a crown prince, Edward's daughter Margaret would marry the French crown prince. But Marin also knew that Queen Anne had no chance of giving birth to a prince because of the fat brother he sent to be the queen's chef. Not to mention the prince, she couldn't even give birth to a princess. Therefore, he put forward this condition. It seems that the opportunity is behind France, but in fact, Princess Margaret is the daughter-in-law of her own son Caesar. At that time, little Caesar will be the future co-ruling monarch of England. Damn, it seems that the son is the protagonist. Finally, Marin also gave Edward a suggestion. I hope Edward can get the support of most European monarchs to obtain the legal right to send troops. In this way, it is easy for him to send troops. After all, Marin is now in a period of pretending to be a dove of peace, and sending troops must also be just and legal. Henry VII sent troops to attack Richard III because Richard III killed the king. Although his reasons are very sufficient, and Richard III did kill the king. But the problem is until now, Edward V's body has not been found. In other words, Henry VII may not be just if he sends troops without sufficient evidence. If he can't find Edward V's body, he can now be regarded as a regicide. Of course, Marin knows where Edward V's body is. Isn't it inside the wall of the Tower of London Garden Tower? However, this was only removed from the wall when the King of England renovated the Garden Tower in the 17th century. As long as Marin didn't tell anyone, no one in this era knew where Edward V's body was. Therefore, Marin suggested that Edward could seize this opportunity and appeal to the Vatican, saying that Henry VII was the regicide. In addition, Marin could persuade the Pope, and then Edward would become the righteous party, and Marin could also, justly and legally, send troops to help Edward overthrow Henry VII. Chapter 562, Kill all the English nobles. King Richard III of England was a master criminal. After killing his two nephews, he cleverly dismembered their bodies and built them into the wall, making it impossible to find their bodies. After all, in that era, no one expected Richard III to be so cunning. So much so that after Henry VII seized the throne, many people were sent to look for the bodies of Edward V and his brother Richard, Duke of York, but they could not find them. Henry VII sent people to dig 3 feet in the Tower of London, but they could not find the bodies of the two. Therefore, in fact, Henry VII has not been able to prove that Richard III killed the king until now. However, Henry VII was also very smart. He directly married Elizabeth of the York family, the eldest daughter of Edward IV, and became the King of England as the eldest son-in-law of Edward IV. But there is a problem: he can only be regarded as a legitimate king if he proves that he is not a regicide. In other words, he must have enough evidence to show that Richard III is the regicide. In this way, he is the righteous party that eliminates the regicide, and he is also the eldest son-in-law of Edward IV, and he is qualified to succeed to the throne. But the problem is that everyone in England knows that Richard III killed the king, but where is the body of the murdered little king? If the body cannot be found, it will be a headless case. You know, this classic case of hiding the body in the wall is very famous in history. Later, Master Jean Yong borrowed this method in The Untold Story. Wang Jinshan in the book is a master of building walls to hide the body. As long as Marin didn't say it, no one would know about Richard III's genius invention. Moreover, even if Henry VII looked for the body, he would not be so crazy as to demolish the entire Tower of London. After all, the Tower of London is still a royal palace. So, this is a dead end. As long as Edward V's body cannot be found, Henry VII cannot prove his justice and legitimacy. If it is impossible to prove that Richard III is a regicide, then Henry VII is a regicide. Even if he marries Edward IV's eldest daughter, it is useless because he is a regicide. Moreover, the male heirs of the York family have not yet been cut off, so even if he marries Princess Elizabeth, it cannot be considered legitimate. Therefore, Henry VII imprisoned Edward for many years and planned to kill him. With such conditions, Marin believed that as long as Edward appealed to the Holy See, it would bring great trouble to Henry VII. After all, Henry VII could not prove that Richard III was a regicide. Moreover, there are still men in the York family. Therefore, as long as Marin asked his father-in-law Julius II to make such a judgment, it would be enough to shake the rule of Henry VII. Pope Julius II could judge like this. Before finding the body of Edward V, it cannot be said that Richard III killed the king. Therefore, before finding evidence of Richard III's regicide, Richard III was still a legitimate monarch, and Henry VII was also a suspect of regicide. After all, Henry VII killed the king openly on the battlefield, and there was no need to find evidence. Once Henry VII was given the title of suspect of regicide, then Edward would have the legal qualification to openly compete with Henry VII for the throne. Then, Marin sent troops to help Edward, which became an act of justice. Then, the fiefdom and benefits would not be delayed. The reason why Henry VII was able to gain a lot of support and successfully ascend the throne was based on the fact that Richard III had lost the support of the people after he killed the king. Therefore, he was able to ascend the throne with thousands of soldiers and the defection of his opponents. But the question is, you say Richard III killed the king, where is the evidence? Without evidence, you are the regicide. What about the people's will? We advocate the law. Without evidence, your behavior is illegal and treasonous. As for those English nobles who used Henry VII to ascend the throne, according to the law, it is considered treason, which is also treasonous. Following the regicide, such a crime can be light or heavy. When the new monarch needs the support of these nobles, their crimes can naturally be pardoned. But if the support of these nobles is not needed, then they can also be killed on the charge of rebellion and participation in regicide. Although nobles are rarely killed in Europe, serious crimes such as rebellion and participation in regicide meet the conditions for execution. Marin's plan is that this time he will not only help Edward seize England, but also take the opportunity to kill all those English nobles, or at least kill most of them. His purpose in doing so is naturally to prevent those local princes from continuing to split and affect the royal power. In the short term, it is to facilitate Edward to quickly grasp the situation in England. At the same time, take the opportunity to recover the fiefs of those nobles. In the long term, it is actually to facilitate his son Caesar to take over England in the future and reduce resistance. Those fiefdom nobles who have been passed down in England for hundreds of years have intertwined forces. As long as they are alive, their political influence in England is huge. There are no civilians in the current parliament. Therefore, the parliament is full of the children of those old nobles. After the Magna Carta, the power of the English nobles has become increasingly powerful, so strong that they can compete with the past. Faced with the unanimous opposition of the nobles, even the king has to succumb. Therefore, Marin's countermeasure is very simple: kill all the nobles who are attached to Henry VII. In this way, the English parliament will be paralyzed. At that time, there will be no forces to challenge the king. Of course, the consequences of doing so are also serious. After all, those traditional aristocratic families in England have developed for hundreds of years. Even if the main nobles are killed, the remnants of those aristocratic families are bound to be indispensable. Those aristocratic families who have escaped the net will definitely think of revenge. But the object of their revenge must be Edward. Maybe Edward will be assassinated. Even if Edward has escaped those assassinations, if he plans to change the queen and has the opportunity to give birth to a prince, Marin will kill him. Moreover, the responsibility can be pushed to the remnants of the killed nobles. Marin planned all this insidiously in the room, but in the end, He gave up the idea of killing all the nobles in England. Because doing so is too shocking and may be unacceptable to the world. Therefore, the best way is to kill all the great nobles with large fiefdoms, such as dukes and earls. As for the barons and small nobles below the barons, they don't need to be paid attention to. Unless some die-hard opponents are killed. This is because England, which is so big, also needs people to manage it. And in this era, the main literate people are nobles and priests. Although priests can be officials, they cannot be all priests. Therefore, it is better to keep those low-level nobles. In this way, the Kingdom of England also has enough officials available. Moreover, after losing those leading nobles, it is difficult for Parliament to compete with the king. At the same time, the royal family can also take the opportunity to recover the large fiefs of dukes and earls and increase the property income of the royal family. You know, those dukes and earls manage the fiefs of several counties. As long as those dukes and earls of the fiefdom are killed, the land and wealth of the royal family will be multiplied several times. Therefore, Marin does not believe that Edward is not tempted. This time, there is a reason similar to suppressing the rebellion to seize the throne. In addition, most of the nobles have surrendered to Henry VII. They can take the opportunity to raise the butcher knife, kill all the existing English nobles, and deprive them of their fiefs. If it were another time, there would be no excuses such as joining the rebellion and participating in the regicide. You would have no excuse to move the knife against the nobles. If there is no excuse to kill, the end will be the same as Richard III. Taking advantage of such a great opportunity, eradicating those powerful feudal nobles would not only make a fortune, but Edward could also take the opportunity to implement thorough centralization in Britain. Then, when Caesar the Younger marries Edward's daughter and jointly governs England, he can pick the ready-made peaches. For the sake of Caesar the Younger, Marin also worked very hard. Chapter 563, The prospective son-in-law arrives. Just when Marin was hiding in the room and secretly planning to kill all the nobles in England, there was a knock on the door. The current secretary Machiavelli reported that Prince Sigismund, the future son-in-law of the Hoffman family and the crown prince of the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, led a large team to the Grand Duchy of the North Sea. His intention seemed to be to sign a formal marriage contract with the Hoffman family and to make a covenant. Last time, the team sent by Grand Duke Alexander to Worms was just to support Marin, which was not considered a formal engagement. Now that Marin was not beaten to death by the group, but stood firm, Grand Duke Alexander naturally felt that it was time to sign a formal marriage contract. After all, Marin was only Anne's second brother. If you want to marry Anne, you must talk to Anne's parents, the old Hoffman couple, and make a marriage contract with them. This time, the team led by Prince Sigismund was very large. In addition to 2,000 guard knights, there were also several thousand attendants, driving 20,000 cattle and 5,000 horses. Prince Sigismund is a smart man, he knows what Marin needs. Before, when he was in East Frisia, he heard that Marin had advanced agricultural technology, advanced fertilizers, and a way to domesticate cattle on a large scale to plow the land. It just so happened that this year, the Crimean Khanate and Marin used 10,000 cattle and 5,000 horses to pass through Poland. So, Prince Sigismund simply added another 10,000 cattle as a gift to Marin. First, it was to confirm his marriage with Anne. Second, it was also to congratulate his second uncle on becoming the Grand Duke of the North Sea. In addition, Prince Sigismund also planned to form an alliance with Marin. Finally, the most important point. That is, Prince Sigismund wanted to take advantage of the autumn harvest to confirm whether the rye harvest in the manor under Marin's name was really that high. After all, what Marin said was too fantasy. 400 or 500 pounds per moo. Compared with the more than 100 pounds per moo of ordinary fields in Europe, it is simply a myth. So, taking this opportunity, Prince Sigismund decided to go to the fields to watch Marin's serfs harvesting, and personally weigh the weight of grain produced per acre. Note, Prince Sigismund accepted the East Frisian quantifier of acre and the term acre yield last time he visited East Frisia. This time, Prince Sigismund came without any gold, silver, or treasures, nor with those precious works of art. Because he knew that Marin was not interested, and the other people in the Hoffman family didn't like it much either. So, in addition to a few exquisite jewelry to please his mother-in-law, Lady Mary, and his future wife Anne, Prince Sigismund only brought 10,000 cattle, as well as 10,000 cattle from the Crimean Khanate and 5,000 Eastern European Mongolian horses. He knew that his second brother-in-law had advanced agricultural technology, and now that he had obtained so much new land, he would definitely need a large number of oxen to cultivate the land. Therefore, bringing cattle was more popular with Marin than bringing gold, silver, treasures, and works of art. Sure enough, when Marin learned that 20,000 cows and 5,000 Eastern European Mongolian horses were coming, he was very happy. He was planning to vigorously develop the Jutland Peninsula, and he was in short supply of livestock, especially cattle. Therefore, these 20,000 cows really solved the urgent problem. There are also 5,000 Eastern European Mongolian horses. Marin also needs those horses to build his future Cossack village, so it is naturally indispensable. Therefore, Alan personally took a group of people to warmly welcome Prince Sigismund outside the East City Gate. Then, what embarrassed Prince Sigismund was that Marin went to see those Eastern European Mongolian horses. Moreover, Marin bent down to observe the buttocks of those Eastern European Mongolian horses, which seemed very wretched. In fact, Marin was observing whether those horses were castrated. Many of the 1,000 war horses purchased from the Crimean Khanate last time were castrated and could not be bred as a breeding horse at all. Therefore, later Marin asked that he would not accept castrated horses, otherwise he would not pay. Crimea was probably really short of money, so this time, Marin did not see any castrated horses. It was no wonder that Marin was so careful, because he knew that in ancient China, when the Central Plains dynasty conducted tea-horse trade with the nomadic peoples in the north, the nomadic peoples in the north were cunning. In order to be able to carry out this business for a long time and avoid the Central Plains dynasty breeding a large number of horses itself, those northern peoples mostly used castrated horses when they exchanged war horses for tea. In this way, even if the Central Plains dynasty got good horses, it could only be used for one generation. When the war horses are old, they have to go to the grassland peoples for trade. Otherwise, there are no new good horses. Marin was also worried that the Crimean Khanate would be as cunning as the Mongols who conducted tea-horse trade with the Ming dynasty, and they were afraid that they would use castrated horses to fool them, so he specifically asked to use uncastrated horses. Moreover, the reason was not that they wanted to train new Eastern European Mongolian horses, but that European knights were not used to riding geldings. This reason was indeed tenable, and many European knights did not like riding geldings. Therefore, the Crimean Khanate did not suspect him. Moreover, their region was also short of money, and Marin's territory did not border the Crimean Khanate, so there was no conflict between the two sides. Therefore, they did not care about selling uncastrated Eastern European Mongolian horses to Marin. Prince Sigismund looked at Marin speechlessly, bending over and staring at those horse buttocks, which was quite embarrassing. Fortunately, the casual Prime Minister Geoffrey was very good at handling things and entertained Prince Sigismund very well, so that he would not be embarrassed. In the evening, in order to entertain Prince Sigismund who came from afar, Marin held a grand dinner and court dance in the palace, and signed the marriage certificate in public to formally get engaged. But on the second day, Prince Sigismund also strangely rejected Marin's warm hospitality, saying that he would go to Marin's estate in person to participate in the harvest and personally supervise the weighing and observe the rye yield per acre. Marin knew that Prince Sigismund was skeptical about his words, so he simply asked a team of guards to accompany him to a farm not far from Auric, and asked the prince to go to the field to participate in the harvest in person and help him count the grain output per acre, so as to satisfy his curiosity. In this way, the Honorable Prince Sigismund, the future King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania, put on linen work clothes, took a sickle, and joined the harvesting army in the rye field of the estate. In the following days, Prince Sigismund participated in the rye harvest in several estates. Of course, after blisters formed on his hands on the first day, His Royal Highness did not personally participate in the harvest, but he always supervised the serfs harvesting and personally weighed the rye with several guards. A few days later, he finally confirmed that the rye yield per moo in Marin's manor was indeed about 500 pounds, which was amazing. If his second uncle was willing to provide him with that kind of magical fertilizer, then he could also make a fortune by farming. Prince Sigismund couldn't help but fall into despair. Chapter 564, Too Much Food, Must Be Cleared Out. Prince Sigismund was completely stunned after he confirmed with his own eyes that the rye yield per acre of the manor under Marin's name could indeed reach 500 pounds. He then silently calculated that according to the information revealed by Anne, Marin had 80,000 ugrams of arable land in East Frisia, and 120,000 ugrams of arable land in Oldenburg in Schleswig Principality were also entrusted by him. Each acre of land could allow Marin to obtain 250 pounds of rye per acre of profit. Prince Sigismund lay there and calculated for a long time, and finally found out in shock that even if his second brother-in-law calculated the net profit of 250 pounds of rye per acre, 200,000 ugrams of arable land, that is, 2.4 million acres, would have an annual rye income of 600 million pounds. But in fact, the 80,000 ugrams of arable land in Marin's native land had an income of more than 250 pounds per acre, at least 400 pounds per acre. Therefore, its net profit, calculated by rye, must be 744 million pounds. According to the grain price in Germany, 1 pfennig per pound of rye is worth 744 million pfennigs. Converted into gold coins, it is as high as 12.4 million golden gold coins. Even if it is calculated according to the low grain price in Poland, with the lowest grain price of 0.5 pfennig per pound in Lviv, a former Polish city, which was seized by the Soviet Union and given to Ukraine after World War II. As compensation, Poland obtained most of West Prussia and Silesia in Germany. It is still worth 6.2 million gold coins. After calculating it clearly, Prince Sigismund was so scared that his legs could not stand steadily. That night, he found Marin and asked Marin if he made tens of millions of gold coins every year. Marin gave Prince Sigismund a blank look and said, "I have so much food, but do I dare to sell it in a big way? If hundreds of millions of pounds of rye suddenly flow into the market, have you thought about the consequences? If other countries know that I have advanced agricultural technology and powerful fertilizers, they will have to send troops to force me to hand over the secret. So, I have a lot of food, and there are more than 1 billion pounds of food in the warehouse, but so what? I dare not sell it all. Even if you become the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania, you have such a secret, and if people know it, are you afraid?" Prince Sigismund thought about it, and then fell silent. Poland and Lithuania are both aristocratic republics where the nobles control the power. There is nothing wrong with this. Although it is not a constitutional monarchy, the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania are really not as powerful as ordinary kings. Their power is greater than that of the kings of constitutional monarchies, but it is far less than that of king-centralized countries such as France and Spain. If everyone knew that Prince Sigismund had the secret to increase grain production several times, not to mention foreign enemies, I'm afraid that the great nobles in Poland and Lithuania would unite and force Prince Sigismund to hand over the secret. Thinking of this, Prince Sigismund was sweating profusely, and he understood why Marin asked him to find a very remote fiefdom to fertilize and grow crops. Only in remote places will it not attract the attention of other nobles in the country, and it will be difficult for people to discover secrets. Fortunately, Prince Sigismund listened to Marin's advice and spent a lot of money to buy a very remote barren fiefdom. Its location is approximately near the Baltic Sea, near the border area of the far Pomerania region of Germany. This area is close to the German region and belongs to the border area of Poland. Moreover, it is a long way from the prosperous commercial port of Danzig at the mouth of the Vistula River. Therefore, this area is very remote for Poland, and almost no one comes. Moreover, it has a very convenient fishing village Ustka, which can easily and quietly transport grain without attracting attention. In addition, it is not easy for Marin to attract attention when he transports fertilizer. If it is an inland manor, Marin will easily attract the attention of those who are interested when he transports fertilizer. Then, the manor transports a large amount of grain, which is also easy to attract attention. However, the baron owns a little more land. When Prince Sigismund bought it, it included 15,000 ugrams of arable land. So, Prince Sigismund looked at his second uncle Marin with a mean look, hoping that Marin would provide more fertilizer. After all, 10,000 ugrams of arable land is 120,000 acres, and if the yield per acre is 400 pounds, even if the net profit is 300 pounds per acre, there are 36 million pounds of rye per year. Calculated at 1 penny per pound, it is 36 million pennies, worth 600,000 gold coins. If there were 5,000 more ugrams of fertilizer needed for the land, he could get an additional 300,000 gold coins in annual income. So, for the annual income of 300,000 gold coins, Prince Sigismund had no face and directly pestered Marin. Looking at the mean Prince Sigismund, Marin was angry and depressed. However, thinking that Grand Duke Alexander might die next year, this guy would become the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania. Therefore, Marin softened his heart and agreed to provide 5,000 more ugrams of fertilizer. However, Marin repeatedly stated that it was impossible to want more. In addition, the secret of the fertilizer must be kept secret and not let others know. Prince Sigismund naturally nodded vigorously, and he was not stupid, so he knew that keeping secrets was in his best interest. If everyone knew that there was too much food to eat, how could he make a fortune? After getting the huge benefits he wanted, Prince Sigismund turned around and immediately went to please his future wife Anne. This guy has also received a complete court education and is well informed. Naturally, he coaxed Anne, who had never seen the world, around. Marin didn't care about his coaxing Anne. Anyway, Anne was just his sister, not his daughter. Old Hoffman was still there, and it was not his turn to worry about Anne. Generally speaking, the father-in-law is not very friendly to the son-in-law. Because the son-in-law will take away his precious daughter. But old Hoffman is very strange. He heard that Prince Sigismund will become the king of Poland. He treated Prince Sigismund, the prospective son-in-law, more than his own son, without any intention of making things difficult. The old man didn't make things difficult for others, and Marin didn't have to be a bad guy to make things difficult for this brother-in-law. After the autumn harvest, the 9 provinces under Marin's rule immediately began statistical work. The first to complete the statistics were naturally East Frisia, Oldenburg and Schleswig, which were originally under Marin's rule. In these 3 places, Marin had already completed full control and established a strict administrative system with high efficiency. According to statistics, the total grain output of these 3 regions this year is £1.5 billion, which is slightly less than last year, but the difference is not too big, and it is basically the same. Among them, £860 million belong to Marin personally, which is about the same as last year. As for other areas, about 70,000 ugrams of land in the North Munster area also belong to Marin, but because the fertilizer processing plant was not built in time, the fertilizer supply was insufficient. Therefore, the yield per moo there should not exceed £200. After all, some fertilizers were used, but the quantity was seriously lacking. In addition, with a large amount of investment in the North Munster area this year, Marin did not expect to make a profit there. Similarly, a large amount of land in West Frisia that was originally taken away by the Principality of Guedes also belonged to Marin. However, the land there has never been fertilizer used, and the yield per moo is just over £100, and Marin is too lazy to look at it. As for the cultivated land in Bremen and Jutland, Marin allowed the former lord to take away all the income from this autumn harvest, so there is no need for statistics. But no matter what, this year is another bumper year for the Grand Duchy of the North Sea. The problem with the bumper harvest is that the granary is not enough again. So, in order to store the new grain, Marin must clear out some of the old grain from last year. On the one hand, it will free up some space for the new grain. On the other hand, it can also be exchanged for a large amount of coins and other necessities. The initial plan is that Marin intends to take out £300 million of rye. In addition, he will help his nobles to sell £200 million of rye. Marin could already imagine the huge fluctuations in the grain market. In order to reduce the impact on the German grain market, Marin decided to build several new merchant groups to travel between the Grand Duchy of the North Sea and Britain, France, Spain and Italy, and do his best to push these £500 million of grain to the market. And sell them at the highest price possible. At the same time, in order to better complete the clearance work, Marin also notified the hired brewing masters to take out more rye to brew rye beer and rye liquor. Brewing seems to be a good way to consume grain. Chapter 565, Working Hard to Make Wine and Raise Pigs. Alas, too much food is also a trouble. Marin shook his head and sighed. If other princes knew that Marin sighed like this, they would probably angrily form a German coalition to beat Marin together, and then press Marin to the ground, rubbing him hard, and saying while rubbing, "I told you to pretend. I told you to pretend." But Marin was not pretending, but was really troubled. As a German principality, Marin did have too much food. It is not a simple matter to double the grain output. Originally, the rye field with an output of only more than £100 per moo, the nobles only earned about £50 per moo. Therefore, the nobles needed a lot of arable land to barely maintain their luxurious aristocratic life. But Marin used advanced agricultural technology and fertilizer technology in later generations to increase the output of rye several times, resulting in a new problem: supply exceeds demand. Under normal circumstances, if Marin puts these grains on the market normally, it will definitely cause turbulence and plummeting grain prices. But Marin didn't dare. Although he had an elite army of 40,000 troops, the secret of doubling the grain production was expected to arouse the interest of all European monarchs. Therefore, Marin could only sell grain secretly, and mainly sell it abroad. Otherwise, Marin would be very likely to be ganged up by monarchs all over Europe. Therefore, despite the full warehouse of grain, Marin still carefully controlled the sale of grain to avoid excessive shipments and arouse suspicion from other countries. However, Marin was also anxious about too much grain in the warehouse. You know, the grain stock in Marin's warehouse had reached more than 1 billion pounds before. Moreover, many of these more than 1 billion pounds of rye were old grain from the year before and last year. Although rye can be stored for 3 to 5 years as long as it is dried, it can be easily deteriorated and expired if it is placed there. Therefore, how to deal with the old grain from the year before has become something that Marin needs to pay special attention to. Because if it is not processed, it will go bad. As mentioned before, Marin has long been eyeing the brewing industry. Ancient Europeans were very strange. Before the British introduced tea as a beverage and developed the habit of drinking tea, Europeans liked to go to the tavern for a drink if they were thirsty. The nobles naturally drank red wine, and many people also liked authentic beer with hops. And ordinary workers, I am afraid, can only drink those sour and inferior beers. But even so, Europeans still like to have a drink after work, no matter what brand it is. Europeans love to drink so much, so Marin believes that taking out a lot of grain to make wine is not only profitable, but also has no worries about sales. At the same time, selling wine is too hidden than selling grain directly. Who cares how much per mu of land the wine seller has? In addition to the most classic dark beer in Germany, some of the extra grain can also be selected to brew brandy and other high-proof spirits. With the characteristics of Europeans who like to drink a glass of wine whenever they have something to do, those wines can still be sold after they are brewed. In addition, it can be further purified to obtain alcohol for medical use. It just so happens that Marin has now reached a timber purchase agreement with Denmark. At that time, the oak imported from Norway can be used to make oak barrels for winemaking. It seems that Europeans like to use oak barrels when making wine. It seems that the wine brewed in oak barrels tastes the best. With the amount of grain that Marin has now, if it is brewed into wine, the output is estimated to be very large. Therefore, it is difficult to consume too much grain just by brewing. After all, the brewing cycle is quite long. Therefore, after thinking again and again, Marin decided that while brewing wine, he could also take out a lot of grain to raise pigs. Yes, raising pigs. Maybe it is too extravagant to feed pigs with fresh grain. However, there is nothing to say about feeding pigs with old grain. Moreover, it is not that grain is fed to pigs every day. Under normal circumstances, wheat bran from wheat grains is enough to be used as pig feed. Under normal circumstances, it is enough to use straw chaff obtained by crushing straw as pig feed. Only those pigs that need to be fattened will be fed with high-nutrition pig feed such as wheat bran. Of course, Marin is in a special situation now, and there is too much food to eat. Therefore, Marin now has the conditions to use a large amount of old grain, which is crushed and used as an important feed for pig farming. Before, Marin's pig pens in East Frisia were already on a small scale. The total number of pigs raised in the pens has reached more than 6,000. Now, Marin can take out so much old grain and continue to expand the scale of pig farming, which is not a problem at all. However, what makes Marin depressed is that the quality of European domestic pigs is so poor. In this era, European domestic pigs are less alert, and some European domestic pigs still have fangs, some like wild boars. Although, the taste of this kind of pork is not bad. But Marin knows more clearly that as a domestic pig, size and growth rate are the most important. Like European domestic pigs, in this situation, they are small in size and need 2 years to grow up, which is definitely a low-grade domestic pig. Moreover, the fertility of European domestic pigs at this time was very poor. Sows could only produce 5 or 6 piglets per litter, which was a very bad level. You should know that in the Ming dynasty of the same period, Taihu pigs in the Taihu Lake Basin could normally produce more than 12 piglets per litter. Some could even produce 20 piglets. Moreover, its growth rate was much faster than that of the native European domestic pigs at that time. Its growth cycle was twice as fast as that of European domestic pigs within a year. In this way, in the same period of time, the production and population expansion capacity of Taihu pigs was more than 4 times that of European domestic pigs, which was naturally far superior to European domestic pigs of this era. Moreover, European domestic pigs in later generations did introduce domestic Taihu pigs and improved the breeds of European domestic pigs. Marin planned to take the opportunity to send people to the Taihu Lake area in southern Jiangsu of the Ming dynasty to look for Taihu pigs after the Ming dynasty route was opened. Then, select several pairs of good boars and sows and bring them back to Europe by ship. Then, this kind of domestic pigs with faster growth and super reproduction ability were introduced to the Grand Duchy of the North Sea to facilitate the development of the pig farming industry. Only when the scale of pig farming is rapidly expanded and more pigs are raised, the amount of pork provided will be greatly increased to meet domestic demand. Only when there is more pork can more people eat meat. The current Germans are also thin and not very tall. Only by supplementing enough nutrition can the people grow taller and stronger. Then, when fighting with bayonets on the battlefield, they can have more advantages. Among the Germans at present, except for those from the Knight family, many people can reach 1.8 meters because of genetic problems and better family living conditions. Those ordinary civilians, many people are less than 1.7 meters tall, which is very different from the Europeans of later generations. This is no wonder. Europe in later generations is a developed region with a high standard of living for the people. They eat steak and drink milk every day, and men generally reach a height of about 1.8 meters, except for the naturally short southern Europeans, such as the Spaniards. Nowadays, ordinary people in Europe live in extremely poor conditions. Many people cannot even eat black baguettes mixed with dirt and stones, and can only eat black porridge mixed with rye, wild vegetables, and other messy things. If you can grow taller by eating such things, it would be weird. Therefore, only by letting all citizens eat bread, pork and salted fish from time to time, and drinking more milk during the growth period, can they naturally grow taller. Therefore, under the condition of sufficient feed, vigorously developing the pig farming industry is a great thing that benefits the country and the people. Sorry, I fell asleep and was woken up by the cold again. I agreed on half an hour, but it turned into 2 hours. I'm so sorry. It's so cold, I have to get into bed. Chapter 566, Continue to buy black slaves. The data of autumn harvest is being counted on the mainland. At the same time, the autumn harvest of the North American Twin Islands and Cape Breton Island has also ended. Albert sent 3 ships of food back. 2 of the ships were 200 tons of soybeans for the war horses. The other ship was 100 tons of wheat. Needless to say, wheat must be used to make white bread for Marin and others. However, Marin did not praise Albert, but wrote a letter to criticize him. Why? At the end of last year, due to the rush of time, not much wheat was planted on the North American Twin Islands. This year, Marin originally planned to expand the wheat planting area. However, Albert, this guy, actually brought back most of the wheat to ask for credit. This made Marin not very satisfied, because Marin believed that people with a real long-term vision should give priority to collecting good wheat seeds for the next year, rather than shipping them back to ask for credit. After all, wheat planting on the North American Twin Islands has just begun and needs to be vigorously developed. In addition, the variety of European wheat is also a big problem. In this era, the varieties of European wheat were inferior and the growth cycle was extremely long. Planting in November of the first year could not be harvested until October of the second year. The growth cycle was almost a year. Of course, Marin equipped the North American Twin Islands with potash fertilizers, which would shorten the growth cycle. But not every wheat plant has the same shortened growth cycle. Some wheat has good genes, and after applying potash fertilizers, the growth cycle is greatly shortened. It is said that the earliest batch of wheat harvested was harvested in mid-August. The latest was not harvested until the end of September. Before, Marin had not thought about variety improvement. Now, he suddenly remembered that he should have told Albert to collect the batch of wheat harvested in mid-August as seeds earlier. Because, after that batch of wheat seeds were planted, if potash fertilizers were continued to be applied, they might still be harvested in mid-August, and even some excellent ones would be harvested earlier. And the wheat varieties of later generations were improved little by little, generation after generation. Unfortunately, Marin did not tell him before, so Albert naturally would not think of this. Therefore, after the wheat was harvested, the early harvest and the late harvest were basically mixed together. Marin thought about it and gave up. Because he had a better idea: send people to the Ming Empire to buy wheat seeds from the Ming dynasty. The wheat in the Ming dynasty was generally either planted in spring and harvested in autumn, or planted in winter and harvested in summer, and the growth cycle was much shorter than that of European wheat. In fact, this is not surprising. The Chinese people applied manure and used wood ash very early. And wood ash is a low-grade potash fertilizer. Although it is not as pure and large as Marin's potassium salt, it is also a potash fertilizer and can promote the early maturity of wheat. After generations of improvement, it is naturally much shorter than the harvest period of European wheat. As long as Marin sends a fleet to the east and contacts the Ming dynasty, what wheat seeds, silk, porcelain, as long as you pay, you will have everything. Moreover, Marin is not worried that the Ming dynasty will not accept him. As long as you throw out a killer weapon like sweet potatoes, you don't believe that the Ming dynasty will not kneel. The sweet potato yield of 2,000 kilograms per mu can make the Qing dynasty prosperous and also make the Ming dynasty happy. Maybe, the disaster at the end of the Ming dynasty can also survive. After all, the yield of sweet potatoes per mu is more than 10 or 20 times that of rice and wheat. As long as there is food to eat, ghosts will rebel. Now, Marin is waiting for good news from Panama. Once Gao Lade has gained a foothold in Panama and relied on the black uncles to cut down trees to open up a road to the Pacific coast, Marin will immediately send road engineers and a large amount of cement to Panama to guide and supervise the black slaves to build cement roads. Once the cement road from the Caribbean to the Pacific coast is built, the trade route to the Ming dynasty can be opened. However, road construction is a big project and requires a lot of manpower. But Marin does not plan to send too many construction workers from the mainland, but only plans to send a group of construction engineers to guide those black uncles to build roads. After all, the local poisonous insects and mosquitoes in Panama are too terrible. Sending too many local workers can easily cause a large number of deaths. The black uncles were different. They were used to the climate of the tropical rainforest and were somewhat immune to the poisonous mosquitoes and insects in the tropics. Marin sent a small number of construction workers over there, and he could still save their lives by providing mosquito-repellent floral water. If too many people were sent over there, the mosquito-repellent floral water might not be enough. However, in this way, the number of black slaves over there would be too few. So, Marin thought about it and decided to send people to Portugal again to find the Duke of Coimbra, Jorge de Rencaster, and place a large order of 5,000 black slaves with him. The unit price was the same as before, 40 gold coins each. Moreover, only young and strong men were needed. This was a super large order of 200,000 gold coins. The Duke of Coimbra's territory, apart from the African trade, might not have so much income from the territory's output in a year. Therefore, Marin was not worried at all that the Duke of Coimbra would not accept the order. He was just worried about when these 5,000 black slaves would be in place. After all, the Portuguese also needed to place orders with the black chiefs in Africa, hoping that they would defeat their opponents and capture enough captives. Moreover, those captives had to be trained well. Otherwise, it would be bad for the disobedient black uncles. If the buyer was hurt, it would hurt his reputation. Therefore, in order to improve efficiency, Marin directly advised the Duke of Coimbra in his heart: don't wait for others to start a war. If necessary, you can pay to instigate those powerful black tribes to take the initiative to attack those weak tribes and capture enough black slaves. This trick was very common in Africa later, and the Portuguese colonists played it very well. However, it was only 1505, and Portugal's slave trade had just started. It was still in the stage of waiting for African chiefs to take the initiative to deliver goods, and it had not yet developed to the point of instigating those cooperating chiefs to take the initiative to start a war. Therefore, Marin gave the Duke of Coimbra some advice in advance in his heart, so that he could get 5,000 black slaves as soon as possible. Otherwise, God knows when the roads in Panama will be repaired. Of course, it is not enough to rely on Uncle Black alone. Marin decided to use a two-pronged approach and use the same trick to deal with the local Indians in Panama. For example, he would win over a powerful Indian tribe, exchange slaves with goods that interest them, tempt those local Indian tribes to start tribal wars, and provide some Indian slaves for the road construction site. Needless to say, these local Indians in Panama must be very adaptable to the local climate and will not die from illness due to acclimatization. Although Indians are definitely not as good as black people at work. But, after all, they are also capable of working. One more person means one more force. This cement road connecting the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean can also be completed one day earlier. And Marin can also open up the Pacific trade route to the Ming dynasty as soon as possible. Chapter 567, Change of Thinking. Thinking carefully, Marin felt that it was very necessary to open up the route to Daming as soon as possible. Needless to say, wheat with a shorter growth cycle is a must. In addition, Taihu pigs with many litters and fast growth are also needed by Marin. In addition, tea is also needed by Marin. Most European nobles are carnivores, and their diet is greasy, so they need tea to clear the oil and relieve the greasiness. Moreover, the English milk tea made by Marin, that is, adding sucrose and milk, is simple but delicious, suitable for the tastes of all kinds of people. Moreover, it can also be sold with sucrose, which can be said to kill two birds with one stone. As for silk and porcelain, although they are not urgently needed, they can't resist the Europeans' love. As long as they are shipped back, they can make a lot of money. The only thing Marin is worried about is whether Europe has so much gold and silver to buy high-end consumer goods such as silk and porcelain from Daming. You know, there is no goods in Europe that Daming urgently needs. Therefore, if you want to buy silk and porcelain from the Ming dynasty, you must spend real money and pay a high price. Although Marin came up with the idea of using perfume to open up the Ming market, the output of perfume is limited after all. If you want to avoid a serious trade deficit with the Ming dynasty, you have to think of other ways. At the beginning, the British solved this problem by using the evil method of selling opium. But Marin would definitely not do so, and the Ming dynasty was not the Qing dynasty, and it was impossible for it to condone foreign countries to do so. Therefore, Marin set his sights on Japan. Coincidentally, Japan is now in the Warring States period of village chiefs, and the country is in chaos. The famous Iwami silver mine has not yet been developed. Marin's plan is to take advantage of the civil unrest in Japan and send troops to capture the Iwami silver mine in Iwami province. As for those village chiefs in the Japanese Warring States period, Marin believes that as long as there are a few thousand musketeers, it will be enough to defend Iwami silver mine. Don't think that the Japanese warriors are good at martial arts and can go to the southeast coast of the Ming dynasty to cause trouble, but it's useless, because, no matter how good your kung fu is, you can be knocked down with one shot. Even Yi Wen, who said, "I want to beat 10 people," had to bow his head and admit his weakness in the face of the Japanese's Type 38 rifle. Otherwise, no matter how good your kung fu is, you will be killed by one shot. If it's a close fight, those musketeers will definitely not be able to beat those Japanese samurai. However, the role of the musketeers is to prevent the opponent from getting close. Facing a volley of guns, no matter how high your martial arts are, it's useless. If you can build a castle wall, a few thousand musketeers will be enough to withstand the attack of tens of thousands of samurai, and they will have the upper hand. After all, musketeers are best at defense. As long as the extremely rich Iwami silver mine is developed, Marin will not lack silver. In the Ming dynasty, silver is scarce and very valuable. At that time, Marin can spend the Japanese silver to buy the goods he wants in the Ming dynasty, and he can also have a lot of surplus. By then, the merchant ships under his command would not only be able to bring back a large amount of silk and porcelain, but also a large amount of silver produced in Japan to meet the needs of European coinage. In addition, Japan's copper mines are also very rich. Since the late Ming dynasty, Japanese copper has become an important commodity for Japan's export trade, and is sold to various places by Japanese Red Seal ships and Dutch merchant ships. If the copper produced by the French copper mine in Sweden caused the first sharp drop in European copper prices, the Japanese copper brought back to Europe by Dutch merchants caused the second sharp drop in European copper prices. From then on, European copper prices gradually decreased, gradually approaching the level of the East, and were no longer high. Of course, Japan's gold production is also amazing. For example, the gold reserves of Sado Island and Kagoshima are also very large, both of which are hundreds of tons. However, the Hishikari gold mine in Kagoshima is under the control of Japan's most powerful Satsuma domain, and it is much more difficult to seize than Sado Island. But the Hishikari gold mine also has its advantages, that is, the gold content of this gold mine is very high, reaching an astonishing content of 80 grams per ton, or. The Indonesian Groberg gold mine, which is the top 10 gold mines in the world, has an ore gold content of only 0.703 grams per ton. The difference in gold content between the two is an astonishing 113 times. What does such a large difference in gold content mean? It means a huge difference in mining costs. In addition, if the Hishikari gold mine produces 1 ton of gold per year with equal labor, the Hishikari gold mine can reach 113 tons. Therefore, for the current low mining process, the production efficiency of mining super-rich mines such as the Hishikari gold mine is obviously much higher. For ordinary gold mines, a lot of manpower and material resources are spent, and the annual output of gold may be only 1 or 2 tons, but the Hishikari gold mine can achieve the level of 1 or 2 tons of gold per year with less labor, which is the difference. Of course, this refers to the rich mine underground in the Hishikari gold mine. In fact, there are 2 gold mines in the Hishikari gold mine. One is the gold mine on the surface, which is an ordinary gold mine with a low gold content. The underground Hishikari gold mine is the real super-rich mine. As long as the surface mine is found, we can continue to drill holes and explore to find the underground rich mine. As for the fact that Satsuma is a powerful vassal state, Marin is actually worrying too much. The powerful Satsuma in Marin's impression is actually the Satsuma after the development of maritime trade. Since the start of the Red Seal ship trade and the trade with the Dutch, Satsuma has actively participated in maritime trade with its location advantage in the southeast of Japan, accumulated a lot of capital, and became one of the richest feudal states in Japan at that time. However, that was later, and the Red Seal ship trade did not start until 1592. The current Satsuma is just a village chief-level feudal state with a slightly larger land area. The economy mainly relies on fishing. It's a strong ghost. Marin thought about it and felt that it would not be difficult to conquer Satsuma if he sent a few thousand more people. But to run Japan and beat up those Japanese village chiefs, we have to wait until the cement road in Panama is repaired. Otherwise, the traffic is not very convenient. Marin scratched his hair in distress. During lunch, Marin was thinking about something and accidentally knocked over his golden food plate. So the servant helped Marin change another portion of food. However, this suddenly gave Marin unlimited inspiration. Change a portion of food. Change. Marin murmured. After a while, Marin suddenly slapped his thigh and said, "Yes, I'll try a different way of thinking." Then, he pushed away the food plate and hurried back to the office to think about new methods. Before, Marin was limited by the road in Panama, and always felt that he had to wait until the road in Panama was repaired before he could carry out the great voyage. However, with the technology of this era, it would take at least 2 years to cut down forests in the Panama area and build a cement road of 60 to 70 kilometers, or even longer. However, if he really had to wait for 2 years, Marin felt that the opportunity would be gone. Moreover, no matter what, even if the concrete road across the isthmus in Panama is repaired and a port is built in Panama City in the future, it is necessary to send ships from the Atlantic Ocean, bypass the Strait of Magellan at the southernmost tip of the American continent, and then go north to Panama City. Therefore, in any case, sending a fleet to the south and bypassing the southernmost tip of the American continent is inevitable. In this case, it is better to act early than late. Marin decided to take some time after the new year to send Columbus to lead the fleet south along the east coast of the South American continent, directly to the Strait of Magellan, and then west to the west coast of the South American continent. Then, go all the way north to Panama. However, on the way, Marin plans to find a large river outlet on the Chilean coastline and establish a transit port. This port will become a transit port for Marin's ships in the future, and at the same time, it will also be a fresh water supply base for the development of Chilean saltpeter. Marin knew that Iquique, the outlet of Chilean saltpeter, had not seen rain for hundreds of years and the fresh water had to be delivered by ships from outside. Therefore, if you want to develop saltpeter in the Chilean desert, you must first find a fresh water supply base in central Chile. Then, load a large amount of fresh water in wooden barrels. After heating and sealing, it can be stored for several months without spoiling, and then sent to Iquique to provide enough fresh water for Iquique and the saltpeter mines inland. After obtaining this transit port, the ship can continue to go north to find the location of Panama City. In this way, there is no need to wait foolishly for the completion of the cement road in Panama. Even before the completion of the cement road, Marin can send a fleet to the location of Panama City first to build a port and a castle. When the cement road is paved, the port and the castle are almost built. Then, you can directly use Panama City as a base to launch a new westward voyage and directly find the route between Daming and Japan. Sorry, the fat man is sleepy. I fell asleep on the table again and froze me to death. I woke up in the middle of the night to continue coding and kept everyone waiting for a long time. Oh, I'll go to bed and take a nap. I have to squeeze into the bus again later. I will definitely fall asleep during the day today. Chapter 568 Coveting the Japanese Population. Even if the cement road on the Isthmus of Panama is not repaired, as long as the castle and port of Panama City on the Pacific side are repaired, Marin plans to send a fleet directly to find a route to Ming Dynasty and Japan. Especially Japan, Marin not only covets Japan's gold, silver and copper mines, but also covets Japan's population. Yes, Marin covets Japan's population. Because, although Japanese farmers are not as strong as African blacks, their ability to work is far beyond that of African blacks. Why? Because Japanese farmers have an extra brain than African blacks. Although he hates the devils of later generations, Marin has to admit that the Japanese, like the Chinese, are also a nation that is hardworking and good at learning. Japanese farmers may be short, but their agricultural skills are several streets ahead of blacks. It is more efficient to work with Japanese farmers than with blacks. Moreover, the Japanese have a very important characteristic, that is, good obedience. This point, blacks do not have until the 21st century. Lao Hei likes to be lazy and run away when working, which makes it very troublesome to manage. Unlike Japanese farmers, it is estimated that they are easier to manage than Chinese farmers. After all, Chinese farmers still have the tradition of peasant uprisings, while Japanese farmers seem to be more honest. Marin plans to directly sell people in Japan after opening up the Japanese route, go to Panama to reclaim wasteland, and help build roads. With the obedience of Japanese farmers, it is estimated that it is much easier to manage than Lao Hei. Moreover, it is not very difficult to sell serfs in Japan now. Why? Because Japan is now in a period of village chiefs fighting. What is the most precious thing during the Warring States period? Of course, ironware. Japan does not produce iron, and most of the iron needed to make samurai swords is smuggled from Fujian, called Fujian iron. Then, Japanese blacksmiths forge it into the famous Japanese sword, that is, the samurai sword. Moreover, the Japanese village chief war is mainly based on samurai. Therefore, a lot of samurai swords are needed. Naturally, a lot of iron is needed. Therefore, Marin only needs to let merchant ships transport a large amount of iron materials, and the village chiefs will come to buy them. Or, try to rob. Because not every village chief has the money to buy. But this is not a problem. Marin cannot charge money, but people instead. No money, right? Still want to buy iron materials? No problem, go and get farmers to exchange. What? You are reluctant to give up the people under your rule? No problem, you can't give up your own farmers, won't you go to other villages to rob? Robbing farmers from other villages, the same exchange for iron materials. Moreover, Marin also plans to sell armor to the village chiefs in Japan. Of course, it is not European-style plate armor. With the height and physical strength of the Japanese in that era, if they really put on a set of 50 jean plate armor, the samurai master would be crushed. Therefore, Marin's plan is to recruit some craftsmen from the Daming dynasty, and also buy Fujian iron from the Daming dynasty, and directly build Ming dynasty-style armor on Taiwan Island, and then sell it to the village chiefs in Japan at a high price. As for the price, it was to exchange the robbed farmers. Then, Marin's merchant ships would transport the Japanese farmers who were traded next year to Panama to build roads and cut down trees to reclaim wasteland. As for whether the Japanese could adapt to the climate of Panama and whether they would die if bitten by poisonous insects and mosquitoes, Marin had never considered it and didn't care. Anyway, Japan has a large population. If a group of them died, they would use iron materials and armor to replace another group to fill the pit. There will always be Japanese farmers with tenacious vitality who will survive in Panama. Marin suddenly discovered that using Japanese farmers to reclaim tropical areas in America seemed to be a very good choice. In this era, Japan was in constant civil war, the country was in chaos, and the economy collapsed. There were probably only a lot of people left in the huge Japanese archipelago. Marin remembered that he had read a post in his previous life, which said that in the world population ranking in 1500, Japan was ranked third in the world, with a population of 17 million, 2 million more than France. As for England's less than 3 million, it was not even a fraction of Japan's. The entire Shinra Empire has only about 10 million people, which is completely incomparable to Japan. Therefore, even if Marin takes away tens of thousands of serfs from Japan, it will not have a particularly big impact on Japan. Moreover, Japanese farmers are obedient and their agricultural skills are better than Lao Hei. They are indeed excellent agricultural slaves. Moreover, Marin doesn't feel bad if they die. In addition, Marin also plans to get some farmers from Japan to mine Chilean saltpeter. Although the conditions there are harsh and there is an extreme lack of fresh water, Marin doesn't care. It's still the same reason he doesn't feel bad if a few Japanese farmers die. Of course, Marin is not a pervert and will not abuse those Japanese farmers. The food and fresh water that should be given will still be given. However, whether they can adapt to the local climate and survive depends on their own luck. In addition, Marin also plans to hire a group of down-and-out samurai as mercenaries in Japan. What are they hired for? Of course, it is to help conquer those mountain people on Taiwan Island. Marin has taken a fancy to the Jingwashi gold mine on Taiwan Island, as well as the fertile soil and dense forests. However, the European mercenaries sent by Marin may not be able to adapt to the subtropical climate of Taiwan Island. Perhaps it is not a big problem for European mercenaries armed with muskets to deal with the Pingpu indigenous people on the coast. But dealing with the Gaoshan people in the dense forests of the mountains is a problem. Therefore, hiring some poor Japanese samurai and letting them be cannon fodder to help conquer the indigenous people of Taiwan Island is a very good choice. In addition, using those poor Japanese samurai to conquer the Philippines is also a very good choice. Anyway, those native Filipinos are definitely not able to beat the Japanese samurai with martial arts. And those Japanese samurai with high martial arts are not the opponents of the German warriors with muskets. After all, no matter how high your martial arts are, I can knock you down with one shot. In this way, Marin can use a small number of European mercenaries to drive the hired Japanese downtrodden samurai to complete the occupation and rule of Taiwan Island and the Philippines. After that, the local population in the Philippines was captured and sent to America, mixed with Japanese farmers, and let the Japanese farmers guide the uncivilized Filipino barbarians in agricultural technology. Similarly, let them intermarry with the Japanese and mix up their blood. In this way, the Japanese will not become powerful in the future. They can't even tell their own race, so what independent thinking and resistance can they talk about? Or, they can also interbreed with the Indians. As long as the blood of those Japanese slaves is mixed in the future, making it impossible for them to form a unified nation, language and culture, it will be difficult for them to organize a unified resistance front. At that time, the German colonists only need to practice martial arts and musket shooting techniques every day, and be ready to suppress the resistance of slaves at any time. And those slaves from Japan and Southeast Asia are responsible for hard work in the farmland. Of course, Marin has a longer-term plan once agricultural machinery is developed, so there will be no need for so many serfs. The descendants of serfs from Japan and Southeast Asia will be concentrated and immigrated to designated areas, such as tropical islands in the Caribbean, or Colombia and U. At least, the elite North American continent will not keep them. This way, we can also avoid various social and ethnic conflicts in the future. As for the preservation of fresh water, I have described it before. Fill an oak barrel with fresh water and put it in a large pot for high-temperature boiling and disinfection. Then, plug it with a cork while it is still hot, and then seal it with mud around the cork to isolate the air. After the mud is dried, a barrel of fresh water similar to early canned food is ready, and it is not a problem to store it for several months. Moreover, the cost is low. Chapter 569 The Discovery of Lead Zinc Mine. Of course, in this era, it is not just Japan that has a large population. In fact, Indonesia also has a large population. Marin remembers that in the world population ranking in 1500, Indonesia also had a population of 7.75 million, ranking 8th in the world. Mexico, with such a large area at the same time, had only 5 million people. Moreover, most of the population of Indonesia is concentrated on Java Island. The main reason is that Java Island is a rice production base. Although Java Island has an area of only 126,000 square kilometers, which is smaller than England. However, relying on the large-scale cultivation of rice and sufficient food supply, the population on Java Island has reached millions. Speaking of which, the most suitable people to cultivate tropical islands in the Caribbean such as Cuba, including serfs in Panama and other places, are actually the Javanese on Java Island. Because the climate of Java Island is basically the same as that of tropical islands in the Caribbean. It is still very suitable to capture the serfs on Java Island. Moreover, the Javanese and the Japanese have the same virtue, both of them are obedient to the strong, but like to bully the weak. Therefore, it would be very interesting to put Japanese farmers and Javanese farmers together. Both nations are bullies who only bully the weak and fear the strong. What kind of sparks will the two sides create when facing each other of the same status? Perhaps, in the future colonization, we can deliberately provoke conflicts between Japanese serfs and Javanese serfs under our rule, so that they will be hostile to and fight each other. We have to control them well, and perhaps we can guarantee the long-term rule of the Germans. As for the Filipinos, in fact, they are still in the barbaric era at this time, which is too far from the Japanese and Javanese. At least, Japan and several countries on Java Island have entered the era of agricultural civilization. On the Philippine Islands, except for a small country called Sulu in the southwest waters, there is not even a civilized country on Luzon Island, only some loose tribal alliances. Moreover, in the future Dutch colonial empire, Java Island will be their ruling core, with a higher status than the Spice Islands. Because Java Island has a large population and a developed economy, it can provide a lot of taxes for the Dutch colonists. Moreover, the Javanese on Java Island are skilled in agricultural technology and are much easier to manage than those uncivilized savages. The only trouble is that the several countries on Java Island seem to be quite strong. It is estimated that it will take a lot of people to defeat them. Of course, if we can get a lot of Japanese samurai from Japan as cannon fodder, coupled with powerful muskets and artillery, it should not be difficult to defeat the local small countries. As long as a large number of Javanese are obtained, they are mixed with Japanese serfs, and the conflicts between the two ethnic groups are deliberately provoked, so that the two will not care about resisting colonial rule. In addition, coupled with the use of Filipinos and Indians and intermarriage between the two sides, mixing their blood and messing up their cultural heritage, it will be easier to control them at that time. So, in general, it is most important to open up the route of daiming now. As for the cement road to the Isthmus of Panama, it is secondary. After all, it takes a long time. In addition, Marin is also very interested in Malaysia. Because Malaysia produces tin. The importance of tin is needless to say, and it is needed in large quantities to make bronze. Tin mines in Europe are scarce, resulting in high prices. If the tin mines in Malaysia can be controlled, it will be a very good colonial project. Moreover, Marin does not hate Malaysia. If it doesn't work, you can support the Malacca Kingdom in Malaysia, called Manchuria Kingdom in the Ming Dynasty, and let them mine by themselves. Then, you can buy it yourself. Of course, this kind of acquisition does not allow other countries to intervene, and monopoly can have enough profits. In addition, it seems that Portugal will destroy the Malacca Kingdom in 1511 in history. In order to make things difficult for the Portuguese, Marin plans to quietly support Malacca and sell some muskets and artillery to them so that they can resist the Portuguese attack. Anyway, it is right not to let the Portuguese control the Strait of Malacca smoothly. Just when Marin was writing in the office and writing the Eastern Strategy, Machiavelli suddenly knocked on the door to report that another ship had returned to the port of Emden, which was sent back by Cape Breton Island. Captain Jinsen was coming to report the situation of Cape Breton Island to Marin in person. Marin put away the plan, called Jinsen in, and listened to the report. According to Jinsen's report, Marin learned that there was not a surplus of food in Cape Breton Island this year. Because Marin pulled more than 20,000 English refugees over. In order to accommodate these refugees, Garland distributed all the excess food to the English immigrants. Therefore, this time Garland's ship did not bring back food, but brought back a large amount of paper produced by the paper mill. The paper mill in the north of Cape Breton Island has a high efficiency in paper production because of the use of modern technology. In addition, there are endless trees cut down in the local area, which can be used to make paper. Coal and other things can also be easily obtained from the Sydney mines. Therefore, the output of paper there is very large. In addition, according to Jinsen's report, the immigration point sent by Garland to Corner Brook, the western port of Newfoundland, has also developed very well. Before, because the limestone mine in Corner Brook was discovered, Marin simply moved the cement plant there. At present, the cement plant in Corner Brook has built the first batch of vertical kilns and has begun to burn cement. When the production capacity is stable, cement can be supplied to the mainland in large quantities. What surprised Marin the most was the last item in Jinsen's report: the Bacon lead zinc mine on Newfoundland was found. Before, in order to obtain zinc to make tinplate and galvanized plate armor, Marin specially planned to help Edward capture the island of Ireland. Unfortunately, the lead zinc mine at Mount Tara on the island of Ireland had to be abandoned because it was too deep and had severe water seepage. Therefore, after learning that Corner Brook had established a settlement, Marin sent prospecting engineers to go deep inland to find the Bacchans lead zinc deposit on the north shore of Red Indian Lake. Although Marin did not know the specific coordinates of the Bacchans lead zinc mine, he remembered that Bacchans was on the north shore of Red Indian Lake. And Red Indian Lake is on the east side of Grand Lake, the largest lake on Newfoundland. As for Corner Brook, it is on the northwest side of Grand Lake. Specifically, Marin remembered that the distance from Corner Brook to Grand Lake was less than the distance from Grand Lake to Red Indian Lake. Moreover, Bacchans is above the turning point on the upper left of Red Indian Lake. The reason why Marin remembered it so clearly was because of the Newfoundland fishing ground. As a world-famous fishing ground, when studying geography, Marin specially checked the local map. Later, he specially checked the satellite map and focused on the situation on Newfoundland. Originally, this memory was very vague. But because his memory became stronger after the time travel, he dug up this memory again. However, Marin gave a rough area, which was probably several hundred square kilometers. It is not easy to find mineral deposits in this area. In addition, the Indians on the island may not be friendly. The indigenous Indians on the island of Newfoundland, the Beotics, are divided into two branches. One makes a living by fishing on the southeast coast, the other mainly raises reindeer on the inland plateau and lives a nomadic life. In Marin's eyes, nomadic peoples are generally very fierce. Therefore, he is not sure whether the prospecting team will be in danger if they encounter any nomadic Beotics. But according to Jinsen's report, the Beotics in the inland area are as friendly and kind as the Beotics on the seashore. The premise is that you are willing to trade with them with goods such as iron and glass that they are interested in. Because of the thorough preparation, the prospecting team brought a mule transport team and brought enough iron axes, swords, glass beads, cloth and other commodities. Therefore, after contacting the inland Indians, with the introduction of the temporary translator invited from the coastal fishing village, in fact, this translator did not understand German, but was good at communicating with the colonists in sign language, they quickly established friendly relations with several inland Beotic tribes. Of course, they also made a promise to continue to trade with these tribes in the future. With this promise, the local Beotics became very enthusiastic. Then, with their help, the prospecting team finally found the Bacchans area on the north shore of Red Indian Lake. Then, after a long period of exploration, they finally found the lead zinc vein. After learning the good news, Garland immediately asked Captain Jinsen, who had returned home, to report the good news to Marin. At the same time, he also asked Marin what to do next for this lead mine. People at this time did not know zinc. Chapter 570, Danger on Newfoundland. Of course, Captain Jinsen did not bring all good news. For example, although the Bacchans lead zinc mine was found, the journey was too difficult. Most of the roads along the way are mountainous, and it is necessary to cross the Grand Lake, which is very inconvenient for transportation. However, there is no way. Who makes the Bacchans deposit the easiest lead zinc mine in Marin? The number 12 deposit in New Brunswick, not far from Newfoundland, has a zinc metal reserve of more than 10.7 million tons, which is almost 10 times that of the Bacchans mine. However, the number 12 mine in New Brunswick is deep in the inland area, where there are many Indians and close to the territory of the fierce Iroquois Indians. The safety is not as good as that of Newfoundland. You know, even though they are all Indians, there are also big differences. The Beotics on Newfoundland are stupid and good people, and they are enthusiastic when they see anyone. However, some Indian tribes on the North American continent are very warlike, such as the Iroquois League. This is mainly because the biotics on Newfoundland have few people and a lot of land, and there is no demand for competition. The Indians on land are different. Because there are many Indian tribes on land, fighting for territory often occurs, so they are much more fierce than the Indians on Newfoundland. The Indians on Newfoundland are estimated to be no more than 10,000 people in total, but they occupy a huge area of 111,000 square kilometers. In addition, the Newfoundland fishing grounds are extremely rich in fishery resources, so the Indians on Newfoundland have more food than they can eat, and they don't need to fight and compete with each other for prey resources like the Indians on land. Therefore, they lack the fierceness of the Indians on land. Even the biotics who herd reindeer in inland areas are not as fierce as Marin imagined. Therefore, for safety reasons, Marin is currently better off mining lead and zinc on Newfoundland, where the Indians are relatively stupid and friendly. For the biotics on the island, Marin only needs to trade some necessary goods with them to coax them. Marin has no way to deal with the difficult journey. He doesn't have machinery to open mountains when he encounters them. If you want to transport the lead zinc ore out of the Bakken's deposit, you can only rely on mule teams to carry it out of the mountains and send it to the port of Corner Brook in the west. As a seaport, Corner Brook is very convenient for transporting coal from the nearby Cape Breton Island. After the lead zinc ore is transported out, a blast furnace is directly set up locally for smelting. Of course, in order to obtain zinc metal, it is necessary to add a condenser to the vent above the blast furnace to condense the evaporated zinc metal vapor. In any case, the Bakken's mine has 1.08 million tons of zinc metal reserves, and the average zinc content of the ore is as high as 6%, which is very convenient for smelting and extraction. In addition, the Bakken's mine also contains about 234,000 tons of lead metal, with an average grade of 1.3%, which is not high, but it is also worth mining. After all, Marin's demand for lead is not small, and he needs to provide a large amount of lead bullets for the musketeers. In addition to lead and zinc, the Bakken's mine also stores 374,000 tons of copper metal, with an average grade of 1.57%, which is slightly higher than the grade of lead and is worth mining. In addition, there are about 27 tons of gold with an average grade of 1.5 grams per ton. And 1,800 tons of silver with an average grade of 100 grams per ton. In short, the reserves and grades of this mine are not high, but not low, and it is more valuable to mine. The trouble of developing the Bakken's lead zinc mine is not only the difficulty of transportation, but also the harassment of the transportation line by the Newfoundland white wolf. At this time on the island of Newfoundland, the Newfoundland white wolf has not been extinct, but is rampant. Moreover, the Newfoundland white wolf is tall and strong, and likes to live in groups. When it appears, it is in groups, and its combat effectiveness is very strong. Before, the team sent to explore the mine brought a large number of mules to carry goods. However, when camping at night, they were attacked by the Newfoundland white wolf and several mules were eaten, which made the prospecting team feel distressed. Fortunately, there were no casualties. After all, a few mules are enough for a group of Newfoundland white wolves to eat for a long time. But the problem is that fortunately the prospecting team brought a lot of mules. If the mule had not been so big and died instead, the prospecting team might have been the unlucky ones. Later, after the development of the Bakken's lead zinc mine, there would definitely be continuous transportation from Bakken's to Corner Brook. If the Newfoundland white wolf pack kept harassing, whether it was eating the mules or the people transporting the goods, it would be a loss for Marin. Originally, Marin was reluctant to kill the Newfoundland white wolf, an animal that became extinct in later generations. But after thinking about it, Marin gave up the naive idea of protecting the Newfoundland white wolf. After all, the Newfoundland white wolf has seriously threatened the safety of Marin's men. Marin is not an animal protector, but a pragmatist. No matter whether you are protecting animals or not, if they endanger people, they will be killed. For animals like the Newfoundland white wolf that pose a great threat to humans, being merciful is definitely harmful. After thinking again and again, Marin decided to send troops to kill the Newfoundland white wolf. Of course, it is not to kill the whole island of Newfoundland, but only the area near the road from Corner Brook to the Bakken's lead zinc mine. As long as this transportation line is cleared, Marin is too lazy to bother with the Newfoundland white wolf. After all, if there is no conflict of interest with him, Marin does not want the Newfoundland white wolf to become extinct. Newfoundland is so big that if the Newfoundland white wolf does not come to the western region, there will always be a place for them to survive in other regions. However, the wolf pack walks fast, and it is not easy to kill them. Even if they cannot be beaten, they will run away. Therefore, Marin believes that the most suitable type of soldiers to kill the Newfoundland white wolf is the black shirt knight, the black shirt knight using a clockwork musket. The white wolves run very fast, and riding a horse is the only option to catch up with them. Moreover, shooting with a musket on horseback is also a good way to hunt. Moreover, the loud noise made when the clockwork musket is fired can also fully deter and scare those Newfoundland white wolves. Finally, Marin decided to send 200 black-shirt knights with high aiming and shooting accuracy on horseback to clear the transportation route back and forth, and use spring-loaded muskets to repeatedly hunt white wolves and bears approaching the road to ensure the safety of the transportation route. No matter how flexible the Newfoundland white wolf is, it is not faster than a bullet. No matter how many there are, they are not as good as 200 black-shirt knights. With these black-shirt knights patrolling with 5 carbines each, it is difficult for the white wolf to not retreat. However, the blind bears on the island are more difficult to deal with. The bear skin is thicker and softer, and bullets are prone to problems. If the blind bears are forced to be ferocious, people may die. Therefore, when the black-shirt knights kill the Newfoundland white wolves and bears on the island of Newfoundland, they need to act together in large groups. In this way, even if they encounter a crazy blind bear, they cannot be killed with one shot, so they can shoot with multiple muskets together. In the face of hail of bullets, no matter how thick the bear skin is, it will be shot through. In order to prevent the black shirt knights from being attacked by wolves at night, Marin also planned to let the black shirt knights bring the ancestor of the German shepherd dog, the Alsatian wolf dog, to guard the night and prevent the Newfoundland white wolf from attacking at night to ensure the safety of the soldiers.